bring the energy, he'll do the rest. Martinez Company, powered by Sports Radio 102.9 The Game.
You're going to hear it right here.
The show starts now.
It feels good to see the world getting loose. Feels good to see the world getting loose. I don't know about you, Sack Noel. I don't know about you, Phenom. I don't know about you, White Shadow. I don't know about you, but I feel good.
Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, December 2nd here in Tampa, Florida, and everywhere you are around the world. We do appreciate you guys always tuning in here to the Coastal Sports Network and, more importantly, Sports Radio 102.9 The Game, and also at SR1029thegame.com, as we do appreciate everyone coming back after a holiday weekend. We hope you guys all had a good time with your friends and families and friends, and even for those who like to celebrate Friendsgiving, as we all know it here around the world. And a lot of the folks, you get to go home to see their college friends, more importantly, because they get that time separated from high school, freshman year, sophomore year, you name it. But at least everyone was able to have the opportunity to go back home, travel. I know some travel northeast because of the winds, snow, and such. Some folks are delayed, but most people seem to have gotten home across the country well. And yes, it is quite chilly across the country. I know right now here in Tampa, it is about 55 degrees. But more importantly, we thank you all once again for tuning in. Don't forget, you can always download the app over on SR1029thegame.com directly from the home web page. So right on the landing page, you guys will end up seeing, after about the second spot down, you guys will end up seeing that there is a spot where you can download the app. Lots to get into, as it was a long weekend, good college weekend, maybe for some, maybe not for others. Miami goes down to Syracuse, which is kind of surprising, but Syracuse is a good team nonetheless, and knocks off Miami from going to the championship game. Of course, not the overall one, meaning the bowl, just the championship game. So they're out. Penn State is in because Ohio State beaten by Michigan. So that puts Penn State in the Big Ten Conference Championship game. So that should be exciting. And then I want to start out with this video here because Pat McAfee was asked on NFL Game Day. This was prior to the game to start. His thoughts on how the Eagles would start. So here is Pat, and then we'll start getting into the rundown of what happened over the NFL weekend. So here's Pat McAfee, and he mentions, again, this was yesterday about 12:30-ish or so, about 5 hours prior to the game starting, 4 and some change before the game started. But here's Pat's thoughts on what he thought on the what would have been, and obviously it is, eventually the win.
I don't know which way or what order the producers think this is going to go, so I do apologize for that, but I'm going to start with Mooch.
Okay, what you got? What you got, Yins?
Mooch, there is a Paisano coach in Philadelphia named Nick Sirianni who's got the boys buzzing. I mean, I've seen you guys talk about Saquon Barkley every single week. Cam Jurgens filled in for Jason Kelsey in beautiful fashion. Vic Fangio, another Paisan. Big Dom, another Paisan over there in Philadelphia. They got their work cut out for them today. The mozzarella and the bruschetta is not easy. Lamar Jackson, 23-1.
What? 23-1.
Philadelphia buzzing. Lamar is Lamar. What's your message to the team?
Yeah, you know, you want the Italian guy to tell the world what the Italian guy is going to say. We went to the same school, you know, me and Sirianni. We went to What's the Matter, You?
Oh, right? My gosh.
So at 23-1, that one, though, he's going to say to his team, all right, fellas, you've been reading about this all week. I'm tired about it, all right? We're not going to read it. You ought to know this. That one time that the Lamar lost was to the New York Football Giants. You know what? Who was on that team? Yeah, the guy that's sitting right here, Saquon Barkley, was with us. So all of a sudden, we got that guy. And you know what? The Ravens beat the Eagles, but you know what? Jalen Hurts wasn't playing back then. So you know what? As a coach, he's going to tell his team, you know what? I like our running backs better than their running backs. I like my dual-threat quarterback better than their dual-threat quarterback. I like our offensive line better than their line. I like our defense better. And you know what? I like our bird better, too, because we have an eagle, all right? We salute that thing in America. I don't know what you have a raven for. I don't know what ravens are.
Yeah, what's the matter with you?
What's the matter with you?
What's the matter with you?
There you go. He starts off with, "What's the matter, you?" That's where he went with Nick Sirianni. But nonetheless, it was a great overall win by the Birds over the Ravens. And you guys have heard me say that obviously I'm not going to get on that super crazy bandwagon. And yes, there are winners of 8 in a row. But as I mentioned this morning on the Pete Shepard Show, and by the way, you guys can always make your comments live on our social medias, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Kicks, Rumble, LinkedIn. And you can call or text the show at 727-858-6650, 727-858-6650 here on the newest game in town here in Southwest Florida. But listen, I am not going to continue to, and I won't still jump on the bandwagon because here's my only fear. You have basically a handful of games left, about 4 games left here for the end of the season. Eagles are winning right now, winners of 8 in a row. Now, do I believe, and I know Rick will probably end up asking this question, and I'll wait and see if he does, but if are the Eagles or would they run the table? I'm not 100% certain. I didn't think it was going to be a win, truthfully and honestly. I believe I did mention it on Wednesday before the break, was that I didn't think the Eagles were going to be able to beat the Ravens. Now, there wasn't a chance saying that they couldn't and they shouldn't be able to. But nonetheless, they end up beating the Ravens. And this is where it gets kind of scary. One of 2 things. One is everybody right now is as healthy as it can possibly be. I know a couple guys were banged up yesterday. And the whole situation with Trevor Lawrence, that to me doesn't make any sense when you look like you were just targeting. I mean, you're wearing a brace and you hit the guy directly in the face mask on the helmet. And I mean, we all saw him go stiff. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But nonetheless, winners of 8 in a row. And this is where when teams get hot, we've seen it. We've seen Kansas City do this. We've seen teams who have gone on to win the Super Bowl do things like this. Now, the Eagles are on pace still for Detroit to try to win home field advantage. And I would have to take a look at Detroit's schedule a little bit later on to figure out, I mean, both teams right now, I believe, from trying to remember from the week prior, both teams, I want to say, do not have easy schedules till the end. Even if, seeing Dallas again, even seeing the Giants again, whatever, still not an easy schedule to deal with. But the Eagles know right now everything is going to run through Detroit. They only have 2 losses compared to Detroit, the 1 loss. They would basically have to win out and hope that Detroit loses 1 game or possibly 2 games for that matter. But nonetheless, it is going to be hard for the Eagles to try to win it all the way around. Now, they win the division, that's great, and they can do so. You guys that heard my motto talk about that Washington was going to be the ones to win a division. And at the moment, or at least for a moment, I really thought that Washington was going to win the way the Eagles have started 2-2, slow start. Nick Sirianni, just antics and all kinds of stuff. Once again, just irritated because Big Dom, you can see him when they went into the half. He had to put himself in the picture, blah, blah, blah. The Eagles right now seem to be firing off on all pistons. But this is where we've seen the Eagles turn around and have monumental collapses like last year. Now, thankfully, they can't have that big monumental one from last year, nor do I want to see it again this year. But Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni seem to be on the same sheet of music. These slow starts, though, continue to happen. And I get it. I understand it. Jalen Hurts still trying to make plays that are not there. Lamar Jackson at times yesterday did the same exact thing, making plays that are out there. And he wasn't happy at the very end of the game either. He was a little pissed off. I know there was one cut they played on ESPN earlier on this morning where he kind of cursed up a storm a little bit. But you know what? You're going to be frustrated because you want to win. That's the idea of playing in the NFL. You want to win, especially when it comes this late in the season, because every win counts. Every loss hurts you in the very end. But yesterday, good balance, good RPO. This team here, I hope. Let's start off with the playoffs first, which it looks like the Eagles are going to make the playoffs. Let's start there first. Then we'll talk about if there's any kind of deep run, because we'll see the playoff matchup scenarios happening the way they should. All right, quickly get into the comics here. Rick says, I didn't think it would be a win at the beginning of the game, but things change. And good point, because listen, I just thought, truthfully, even though we were traveling back, but I truthfully thought that maybe they weren't going to pull off the win, but somehow or another ended up doing so. Duncan Dad says, if Detroit loses to Green Bay on Thursday, Eagles run the table, the Birds get a number 1 seed. Correct. But it's going to be a good game nonetheless on Thursday against Green Bay. Green Bay can potentially end up beating them. But you look at a close game you had against Chicago, and Matt Eberflus, and I'll get into that in a little bit, but you look at what Matt Eberflus didn't do, what Chicago almost did to end up giving handing Detroit its second loss of the season. So it could be a possibility. The weather doesn't matter, so I don't want anybody here, whether sleet, snow, rain, whatever, they both play the same exact way. Even though Detroit's inside of a dome, we get it, we understand it, but nonetheless, it won't friggin' matter. And I believe the game is at Green Bay. I could be wrong. If Detroit wins, they need to lose 2 to 3 remaining games, plus Eagles win out, looking like the number 2 seed at the moment, as Duncan Dad had mentioned. And Rick says, I feel like the Steelers would be an issue if that game were to be in Pittsburgh. And it could very much well be, because Russell Wilson right now is playing very, very well. And I was one of those guys, I thought that maybe his career was over. The way he was playing last season in Denver, and him and Sean Payton obviously weren't on the same sheet of music either. It didn't make any sense to me. Good morning, Gas Pump Guy. It didn't make any sense to me either. Rick says, got to keep an eye on Minnesota. Yes, the year the Eagles, excuse me. I say we as if we win, we won something. The year the Eagles end up going to the Super Bowl, we know they played Atlanta, almost blew that game because a slip of the not so much hands, it would have been a whole different story. But Minnesota that year was hot as well. Ended up playing the NFC Championship game in Philly. Philly, of course, goes on to not only win the NFC Championship game, but then beat the Patriots to be able to win their first Super Bowl ever. Minnesota remains hot. I don't know how much, what's the word I'm looking for here? Hey, Dave Wallencheck from Steel City Renegades. Thanks for checking in, brother. By the way, you guys, while Dave is here, if you guys have not checked out if you're a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers or a fan of NFL football, check out Steel City Renegades on Facebook, the Red Line Radio LLC page on Facebook. Those guys put on a tremendous show. Dave and Skipper, it's been a minute since the last time I joined those guys, but it's always a good time on Steel City Renegades, and they don't hold anything back. You're not going to get the fluff stuff over there. You're going to get exactly what Steelers fans may or may not want to hear. But nonetheless, Dave and Chipper do an amazing job at the Steel City Renegades. But getting back to Minnesota here for a second, Minnesota is hot. Sam Darnold has been playing well. I'm not too sure if they're going to keep him around. You're welcome, Dave. No problem whatsoever. Listen, I speak the truth. Steel City Renegades, it's hard-nosed. I've been on this show many a times, and we talked about many times on how either Tomlin should have been let go. And listen, we're both eating crow on that one. Just Chipper Nenendal with Dave with Steel City Renegades, and Chipper also a good fan, or a great fan, I should say, of the Atlanta Braves. So we're not too during baseball season. We're not good friends. I kid, of course, but he's a huge Braves fan. But listen, nonetheless, Minnesota's doing well. Sam Darnold's doing well. I don't think, obviously, Sam Darnold, once Minnesota gets their healthy starting QB1 back next season, maybe Sam Darnold gets called somewhere else. Obviously, it's not going to be to the Jets. If I'm Sam, I want to go back to the Jets. Carolina right now with Bryce Young, they seem to be doing a lot better. I mean, it's crazy to think how Bryce Young ends up getting benched. And a couple of times I had sent a message to a friend of mine and said, just don't give up on him. It didn't seem like they did as he's working with the Panthers. But Bryce Young getting benched and then coming back, Dave Canales seems to have found the winning formula as they've done before in the past. And that's absolutely terrific the way I see it, because we saw him resurrect Baker Mayfield's career. Now he seems like he's going to be doing it possibly with Bryce Young. Now it's going to be up to him at the end of the season because then he'll be coming up on his last year of his rookie deal. But as in Carolina figured out, you know what? Maybe Bryce Young isn't as bad as everybody thought, and we're going to end up bringing him back. So there's a lot of questions to be answered in Carolina. In Jacksonville, you have Trevor Lawrence, who had a shoulder injury. Then he gets that just such a dumb hit. He's sliding already. As much as I yell and scream and shout about it, it's one of those things. It's consistent. It's enough to drive you bananas. It gets to the point where it gets annoying, super annoying. I'm just beyond annoying, to put it in so many words, where it's either the helmet to helmet, these guys leading with their forearms. I mean, I don't know why there's this thing where you have to put the QB or wide receiver, running back, or any player for that matter in concussion protocol. It doesn't make sense. It didn't make any sense on that hit on Trevor Lawrence yesterday. I mean, end up watching the replay this morning with Pete. It doesn't make any sense. Listen, we all heard about the bounty gate, right? The year the Saints ended up winning their first Super Bowl. Looking at them as they did to Peyton Manning. Now, Peyton was able to come back. I'm not saying that Peyton wouldn't have any. Hopefully, thankfully, he hasn't had any problems since. But I don't know what it is with these guys and wanting to go out there and just literally trying to kill someone on the gridiron. It just doesn't make any sense. Listen, the battles are in the trenches, but don't make it to a point where you're trying to literally take people's heads off. It just didn't make any sense to me yesterday. But I just hope that Trevor Lawrence is fine. Dougie P will find out whether today is the day, as Houston hung on to win 23-20. Is today going to be the last day for Dougie P? Or is Jacksonville just going to wait now? Because obviously he had to try to come back and run it with the backup QB. But is it to the point where was it enough for Doug Peterson to hang around? And I haven't seen anything breaking from the wire yet. So obviously he's still a Jacksonville Jaguar. Or does Jacksonville just say, you know what, forget it. We're just going to ride Dougie P to the end of the season. His contract was going to be up anyways, and he's out. And then now starts to be the conversations of, who's doing what, who's winning, who's going to win, who's going to do. I mean, it's 50,000 reasons upon why the things are going to happen the way they happen. But there's going to be coaches talk. Obviously, there's going to be other coaches, more likely they're going to be released. You got to wonder about Cincinnati Bengals. Are they going to see yet another head coach? There's teams right now that are scratching their heads and trying to figure out what they're going to do next. The good thing for the Eagles, as Fuji says, hola to all. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving, bringing home a W from Baltimore today. EAGLES, Eagles. Yes, Fuji. It was a win by the Birds, and we hope that they retain themselves in a good positive momentum, because we don't want to see what ended up happening last year. For the Eagles, let me bring up the schedules just as we're talking here, because we have we'll get into the rundown of the winners losses here in a second. But let me go to the schedule to take a look what we have here coming up this upcoming week. Of course, the Monday night tonight is Cleveland at Denver. That's going to be a cold one again. Cold weather teams, it doesn't matter. Those two are the same. We'll bring up week 14. Let me switch out of here and go over to week 14 for a moment. Looking at week 14 games. Now, Green Bay's at Detroit. So, okay. So I correct myself here. It really doesn't matter as far as the weather, because they'll be inside a dome. So like I said, but even if Detroit was playing outside, what I was trying to say there is it didn't matter because Detroit has played in cold weather. So it makes absolutely no difference. Then you have Panthers coming to Philly at 3-9. We saw if they gave Detroit that much of a hard time, the Eagles are going to equally get as much a hard time from Carolina. And then you have, like I said, we mentioned Detroit here for Thursday, the 8:15 game in a week. And if I can kind of fast forward, let me just go into next week, into week 15. And it will leave us with 2 games left until the end of the season. We would look at the Bills at Detroit. And the Bills right now, especially the way they played in the Stone game yesterday, that would be a tough match for Detroit. And then you have the Steelers in Philly. So again, these schedules are not going to get easier for both teams in a division. At least for the Eagles, they won't. Washington is still hanging around there. And by the way, the conversation is being had, and I'm really, really happy that the tribe that has finally decided, you know what, we're going to make our voices heard. The NFL really needs to listen. And this is why when people tend to change things, you know, the Native Americans here in America didn't want to see the Cleveland Indians go away, but they felt the pressure, decided to become the Guardians. Same thing with Washington, felt the pressure, decided to go to be the Commanders. The Redskins want the logo back and they want the name back. And I like the way they're handling it because they're saying some of the proceeds would end up going and there's no reason why the NFL should not bring this back. And this is why you guys should never go down to peer pressure, because in the end, everybody wants to see the Redskins logo back. You know, we used to kid them, you know, all around when it came to the Redskins. Guys still hear me call them the Redskins because to me, it was, anyways, I'll leave it when it comes to all the other dumb stuff that goes along with it. But nonetheless, the way I see it is that the Redskins want their name back in DC. They want the logo back on the field, back on the helmets. And then some of the proceeds from some of the early talks apparently that they're having is that they want some of that money to go back to the Native Americans and the different tribes to basically help them out to continue to get better. Now, if anybody knows anything about Native Americans, they do so well to take care of one another that all it's going to end up being is just a great boost for them to say that not only are we back in the NFL, but we should never have been taken out of the NFL because of pressure. So I'm glad that there is talks for the Redskins and their logo to be able to come back into the NFL. And to me, I'm super happy, just like my wife, that the Blackhawks never caved and they remained the same. That they didn't cave to their peer pressure or anything else, and nor should have anyone else. So I hope Cleveland Indians, you guys are listening, bring it back too. Enough with the Guardians. Keep things the way they are. Stop with trying to alter and change the world and history and blah, 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 and rewrite things and trying to live as one society. Let everyone make choices. That's why it's a beautiful thing when you get up in the morning, you make the choice of having a good day or a bad day. But life is about choices. And the choices you make is a choice you have to live with. And never live with regrets. Because sometimes you didn't take a chance on something and then you're going to live to regret about it. Because you're going to say, man, what if I would have done this? What could have been the outcome? Some things I understand, yes, you don't want to take too much of a risk at, but some other things, sure, why not? Take a risk. That's what life is all about. We reward ourselves when we take a risk that maybe wasn't supposed to turn out as well, but then you turn around and you look and it ended up being something that was worth the risk. The reward was. So just make good choices. Let teams do what they do best. And either whether it's in-house, talking to folks, talking to their fans, talking to whomever, stop folding to peer pressure. Just like, we know there's objects that were taken away. I hope they'll bring those objects back too, because it doesn't make any sense. But nonetheless, it's going to be a tough schedule from here on out for both Detroit and for the Eagles. In a way, would I love to see them run the table? Of course I would. I'm not going to lie to myself. Sure, I would love them to see them run the table. The problem, though, is if they do, let's just say they win the next four. Let's just start there. They win the next four. Detroit, ironically, loses 2 out of the 3, as Duncan Dad had mentioned. Eagles end up winning home field advantage throughout. And I don't want to hear anybody talk about as far as the weather for any of the NFC teams. It doesn't matter. They've played in it before. No big deal. We all remember how the vet was closed out by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? You had, what's the name there? Talking about brisk rule. They didn't care. They shut down the vet and went on that year to win the Super Bowl. I just want for the Eagles to maintain a well-balanced game. These slow starts are becoming the killers. It is driving the Eagles fans absolutely crazy. And I get it. I understand it. It's a thing. But the bad part that we've seen with the Eagles too is when they have a fast start, it seems like they have a slow finish. Just well balanced. If you're going to start out, but I don't know, what's the next thing? Medium fast, I guess, or medium? Keep it the same way. Keep that same pace. Keep that same mentality. We saw that yesterday against the Ravens. The Eagles defense stepped up huge. And yes, there is a rumor, supposed or alleged, that Brandon Graham could be welcomed back for one more season. And why not? Who in the world wants to go out in a retirement year? You don't want to go out and say, well, what was your final year like? Injured. No one wants to do that. You just want to feel like, I'm going to come back, give it one more. And listen, it'd be great if, let's just say again, for hypothetical purposes, the Eagles turn around and win the Super Bowl. Would that make BG say, you know what? I could go on an injury because we won another one. That's 2 that I've been able to win. Or same scenario, Eagles win and BG says, you know what? Yeah, but I want to earn mine because I want to be out there in the gridiron when it happened. And then he comes back the following year. So a lot to uncover there, but that'll be later on. We'll find out if it's true or not. It'd be nice if that's the case. If he does come back for one more season, why not? He was playing so well this season up until the injury. I just want to see this defense and the next man up mentality as they did yesterday to continue to do so. This defense has been playing lights out. And I try not to get too crazy and too excited about my Birds because I know we've seen this story before. We've read the story. We've seen the movie. We've known how it ends. And I'm trying to be as optimistic as possible. And it may not sound like it at the moment, but I just want for Jalen and Nick Sirianni to keep being on that same sheet of music. That's all I want from them. I want from them to be on that same sheet of music because to me, they have been doing so well and have been playing so lights out that it could be a possibility that they could run the table. But you got Carolina coming up, and a great person to speak to about the Carolina Panthers, obviously with the Bucs, is GPG. I'm going to put them on hold. We're going to take our first break here on Martinez Company. We thank you all for tuning in. We do appreciate it here on the Coastal Sports Network. Don't forget, you can make your comments as the guys have already been doing here live on the social medias, and you can call or text the show at 727-858-6650. When we get back from the break, it's GPG with the weekly Bucs report, and there was a lot there to uncover from the Bucs as they've been playing really well. So we're going to take a quick sponsor break, and on the other side, we'll get together with GPG. You are listening to Martinez Company on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. We'll be right back.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
What's up, Southwest Florida? Jim and the Beef Guy here. Fort Myers, we answered your call. We're pumped to announce the opening of our second location. It's on 41 just north of the Edison Mall. And guys, nothing's changed here. The beef, the sausage, the breaded steak, our Maxwell Polish. Now serving you in 2 locations, Fort Myers and Bonita Springs. And don't forget, if you're having a party, check out our catering menu.
Hey guys, when you're at the counter, don't call it Gardenia. It's pronounced Jardiniere.
Phil Castanetti, Sports World in Saugus, Massachusetts is New England's place to buy or sell the finest in sports memorabilia. For over 35 years, Sports World has offered the finest in sports collectibles. Last month, you might remember Tim Thomas, legendary Bruins goalie, returned on October 5th. What a turnout it was. And now a new event coming up. On Saturday, November 30th, it's Willie O'Ree. Yes, the original Jackie Robinson of the National Hockey League. He'll be signing autographs to the public, $25 each. There'll be photos, pucks, and cards available. Phone orders are welcome. Just call 781-233-7222 for more information. Sports World in Saugus. Be there. Hey, everybody, it's Pete Shepard from the Coastal Sports Network. Want to tell you about my good friend Lou DiMuzio and his company. Lou is the president and founder of Ace Technology Advisors. They're big-time tech specialists. At ATA, they're able to craft, implement, and manage the best and most appropriate solution for your business. They leverage their industry-leading experience and their portfolio of technology partners to improve your best practices and infrastructure. So you can get a hold of them at 888-599-4223. That's 888-599-4223. Check them out on their webpage, www.acetechadvisors.com. That's www.acetechadvisors.com. Or you can email them sales@acetechadvisors.com. Check out my friend Lou DiMuzio and Ace Technology Advisors.
Ion Tampa Bay is the latest news, weather, and traffic for Pinellas, Pasco, Ellsboro, Hernando, and surrounding communities. Stay connected on X, Facebook, and their website, iontp.com. Ion Tampa Bay keeps you informed on breaking news as it happens. Southwest Florida's newest game in town. Sports Radio 102.9, the game powered by Ion Tampa Bay. We'll be right back.
Download the Sports Radio 102.9 FM, the Game app, and tell your friends that Florida has a new leader in digital sports radio.
All right, welcome back. It is 10:46 or so here on the East Coast, down here in lovely Tampa, Florida, where it is 55 degrees. We're getting up to a high of, 69, I believe it is, or 65 degrees nonetheless. It is chillier than usual weather, especially this part of the year. Normally, we don't get these kind of temperatures until about January, late January, and then we rebound back into wherever it is, the 80s, 100s. It doesn't feel like it stays cool enough here long enough. But nonetheless, a lot of us like it a little bit warmer than what it is, but with all that being said, on the line with me, as yesterday, the Bucks needed to win, and the Bucks did that indeed. So here with his weekly report, it is, as you guys all know, Gas Pump Guy, better known as GPG, here on the show from Fort Myers. GP, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. I want to say happy Thanksgiving, since I didn't get to talk on Wednesday. I was running around trying to get stuff set up for the holiday, but happy late Thanksgiving to everybody. I hope everybody had a safe and fun Thanksgiving and weekend. And let's get into this Bucks game with the Panthers. I have mixed emotions about this game because I noticed, and I don't know why I haven't noticed this before, but Baker Mayfield is a really good competitor, but at the same time, I think that's his downfall also, because those 2 interceptions that he got, I mean, he was throwing the ball just hoping and praying somebody would catch it, and the wrong people caught it. And I think that's due to his competitiveness, but at the same time, I think he needs to slow it down a minute, and if he's not there, throw it away or throw it out of bounds or something like that. Because now we're going into this stretch, and every mistake is going to be magnified 100 times. And luckily we came out with the win, but that game was, oh my gosh, I was on my edge of my seat the whole game.
No, you're not wrong on that behalf, because so how do I word this? Could it, and I don't think there's an overconfidence. Maybe, I don't know, someone will talk about it a little bit later on today in the different media outlets. But could there be a little of maybe Baker Mayfield feeling like he is confident, don't get me wrong, but is he, it's so hard to freaking word it. Because you're right. He knows the routes. He knows exactly where he wants to pass. But it is, maybe you're probably right there where you're saying the routes that he wants the guys to run. He knows exactly where they're going to run. To make something out of nothing, it's another thing that a lot of the quarterbacks in the NFL have been doing. But maybe he is trying to lead his guys too forward. Be the wrong way to say it. I don't know. There's something about Baker that you're on to, GBG, that he knows the route's going to be run, but I don't know if it's underthrown too much, not released at the right time. And it's been the last 2 games, if we take a look at it. And I don't know, I just think maybe the pressure, they know they can still end up winning the division, especially the way Atlanta played yesterday. They can possibly end up taking it. I don't know if they're going to be able to run the table like a lot of teams need to do in order to win so, but maybe it's a little bit of too much confidence.
Yeah, I think so. And it's funny because me and my wife were talking. She's a big Bucks fan too. I think that's kind of what got us together, but that's a story for another time. She was telling me, and we were talking, and she's like, at the beginning of the season, everybody was doubting Baker and, he can't do it, whatever. But ever since he's starting to get more praise, she says it seems like he's, I don't want to say maybe overconfident, or maybe he just listening to all the noise and buying into he's a good quarterback, but at the same time, he's I don't even know what the word I'm looking for, but she was saying since all this recognition that he's getting it seems like it's kind of going to his head, and he thinks he's Superman. Don't get me wrong, I love Baker Mayfield, and I've praised Baker Mayfield many times on this show, and I kind of agree with her. I think maybe it might be getting to his head a little bit that he does some phenomenal plays, some phenomenal throws, and maybe he's just letting it get to him a little bit. I don't know what you think, Angel.
I know it's hard, man. It's so hard to kind of figure out what it is, because both of us kind of like lost for words with Baker Mayfield. I mean, listen, Dave Canales, we saw what he did with him last year. This year with Todd Bowles, it seems like he's been able to make him a little more focused. I mean, it's been kind of like a rocky season for the Bucs. Granted, the injuries have not helped out either. That's been kind of tough for him. Thank God for Bucky Irvin. I'll bring up his stats here in a little bit. Thanks to you sending me a piece of information earlier. But with Baker, Baker, to me, he's fine. There is a lot of confidence. I think he wants to see this team exceed. We keep hearing how much he connects and resonates with obviously the players on the field. One of the guys, like we hear that, first one in, last one out. I just think he wants the play to happen maybe faster than it can, if that even makes sense. Like basically he knows what's being called in. They get to the huddle, they get to the line. It's almost like he already wants the play to happen as they're walking up to the line. And I get it, because you get built up in the excitement, you get built up in the moment. But he is focused, he is locked in. I don't know, it's like a missing element. There's that missing little piece that it's almost like your favorite food or your favorite saying. It's on the tip of your tongue that you know exactly what you want to say, but it's not there. But it's amazing to me, even despite the injuries the Bucs have had this season, to be able to find ways to win games. Now, Carolina, don't get me wrong, with Bryce Young, I think we both said it as we were texting back and forth yesterday. Bryce Young is a complete different young man compared to what we saw in the earlier part of the season. As I mentioned before the break, that a good friend of mine who's over with the Panthers, that I reached out to him, I said, just don't give up on Bryce Young. And apparently they haven't, because they were going to plan on keeping Andy Dalton, which seems like, by the way, Atlanta is looking to bench Kirk Cousins after spending all that money on him because of his gameplay as of late. But you look at how the Bucs have been able to handle themselves, even with the injuries, to still be able to say they could be contenders in a division. And rightfully so. I mean, you look at the stats yesterday for Baker Mayfield alone, 21 for 33, 235 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. And again, you're trying to make more out of the play that's not there. Something that Jalen Hurts continues to do all season long. CJ Stroud even taking a step back and just about doing the same thing. I mean, we've seen this. Jordan Love, I don't think not as much as we see him out of Green Bay. But that seems to be, and I don't understand why, it seems to be the norm, even with a lot of games that were played over the weekend from college. I don't know why these guys just aren't releasing the ball within 3 seconds. If you can't see someone open, nothing's happening. Even the short yardage are the best ones to guarantee you at least to get a first down. But everybody's looking for that deep threat, or 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards. Sometimes you get the running back 2-3 yards right in front of you. I'd rather take a 2 to 3 yard pass and movement of the ball than hold on to it. And now I'm sacked. And now I'm, 2nd and 12, 2nd and 15, 2nd and 17. It doesn't make any sense, but Baker has been playing really well. Mike Evans, even being banged up as he was, and he still is. I mean, he's not 100% healthy, but he's back. Godwin, he's going to be thoroughly missed, even if the Bucs make a deep run in the playoffs, because obviously they really needed him to be there. But you take a look at Bucky Irvin, and I want to bring up his stat as well, as I just mentioned Baker Mayfield. Where is it? I have it here. He went 24 rushes, 148 yards, and 6.2 on the average. 1 touchdown. But Bucky Irvin has been the biggest difference maker. And I think you and I even mentioned yesterday on the text going back and forth. Without Bucky Irvin, GBG, are we talking about the same Bucs team that could potentially win the division here? Or will we be taking a step back and looking like what if we would have had that one running back that's needed for that RPO?
Oh yeah, for sure. I like you said, we were talking about it yesterday on the text message back and forth, and I think Bucky Irvin is the backbone of this offense right now. He marched them down the field on that last drive. He marched them down the field, got them to the no, that wasn't the last play. Sorry, I think it was still in the fourth quarter. But anyways, he marched them down the field and got them close to the touchdown area or the end zone, and then they put in Rashad White and they ran him to the left. I mean, you got at that point you got to run. You got to get the guy that's going to be able to run right through that hole, and that's what I like about Bucky Irvin. If he's not our running back, then I don't think the Bucs would be where they're at right now. Especially when Mike Evans and Chris Godwin went down, him and Tucker were producing big time, and they were keeping us in the games. So yeah, if Bucky Irvin wasn't on our team, then I don't think the Bucs would be at where they're at right now. I mean, granted, they'd probably maybe still be playing well, but yeah, I think he's the backbone of that offense right now, and he's taking that role on very well, and he's producing. He's showing what he can do. You know.
You got Rashad White, who came in yesterday, as you just mentioned, 11 carries, 76 yards, no touchdown, average about almost 7 yards per carry. But and listen, not mocking whatsoever Rashad White, because obviously if you don't have, if you have your dominant running back, but you don't have your backup in there, it would be hard. But Rashad White, I don't know, he's living up to his expectations. I don't think he's exceeding his expectations, but nonetheless, with White and Irving right now, that is a good 1-2 combination, at least that the Buccaneers have, with being down, the biggest, I think, wide receiver other than Mike Evans for the Bucs. But then you take also a look at your wide receiving group. You have Mike Evans yesterday, 8 receptions for 118 yards, 1 touchdown, and the only one actually out of them, Cotton with 4 receptions, 20 yards, no touches, as far as no touchdown. Rashad White, for 2 yards. I mean, anybody closer to him was Sterling Sharp for 4 receptions, 42 yards. But you can't, it's going to come down to the point where they've got to keep Mike Evans healthy. If you're planning on winning division, you're planning on making a deep run in the playoffs, Mike Evans has to remain healthy. So now if you're Baker, and it's obviously not up to Baker either. I mean, it's up to Todd Bowles and obviously the OC. But you got to start finding guys who are going to be in sync and in rhythm with Mike Evans. So to me, this week, if you're looking at it, come up on your next game, I would start utilizing everyone else other than Mike Evans. Try and keep them healthy. I mean, I know they're going to be off today. They'll come back tomorrow, play down or practice down at One Buck Place. But to me, you have to start incorporating your other receivers, because the end of the season is not that far away. We're already into December. You got 4 games left in this month, 1 game left in January. And now the Saturday games start to come into play as well, coming up this weekend. Mike Evans goes down. Are we talking about a complete different team trying to just win a division alone, GPG?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the funny thing to me, Angel, is when Mike Evans went down, we were having good runs with what's his name, Durham and we were using the tight ends good. And if Mike Evans goes down before the end of the season, then I think it's going to be rough for us to even win the division. That's just my personal opinion, because I think the Panthers, they're going to be hard on the next game that we play them. That's going to be a real tough game for us. And I think last week I had told you the only game I was really worried about was the Chargers. And now after seeing the game yesterday, now I'm starting to worry about the Chargers and the Panthers. So if Mike Evans, if they don't keep Mike Evans healthy and start passing or moving the ball to different players, I mean, we got Sterling Shepard. He had a good catch and run yesterday. And the other rookie, what's his name? McMillan, I believe is his name. He needs to start stepping up too, and they need to start getting Trey Palmer in there also. I mean, we have some receivers that are actually pretty good, or they showed us that they were pretty good in the preseason. And Trey Palmer's been there since last year. I think he's a pretty good receiver. If they could just start incorporating them a little bit more, so and just have Mike Evans there as the over the top threat presence, because Mike usually gets double teamed or boxed out or whatever. I think Baker needs to start, as much as people don't like to hear it or people don't like to say it. I think not Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield needs to do some screen passes, some little check downs, and get a couple yards here, get a couple yards there, and then let Bucky Irvin run it up the middle, get a couple more yards. If they can dink and duck and get some yards that way, and not always have to use Mike Evans, I think that'll end up helping us in the long run. I was disappointed that they didn't let Tucker in there. I think if they would have used Tucker instead of Rachaad White at the goal line when he ran to the left and didn't get anything and lost yards. I like Sean Tucker. He's a good run up the middle power back, and I think him and Bucky Irvin are the main RBs for our team. But I'm just a fan or armchair quarterback, as they say. So I guess I don't know much, but that's how I see the team. I see it should run through Bucky Irvin and Sean Tucker, because those two guys together, they did phenomenal. I think it was like in week 8 or something like that when Evans was still out, and just keep Rachaad at doing the slot or the screen passes. He's really good at that. He's good at catching the ball and accelerating up the field. He's just, I don't know, when he's behind the line of scrimmage, I don't think that's the good spot for him to be in.
Nope. You're right. You're absolutely right. It's just, again, to me, like every NFL team, and especially for the Bucs, they have to stay healthy. Mike Evans has to stay healthy. I mean, we can't say that enough about him, because he is a wide receiving core at this point. But you really have to kind of bog down come tomorrow back at $1 place and figure out who else can we get in the mix. Or the same way, if it's going to have to be an end around, no matter what it is, the Bucs are going to have to figure out how to be able to win it. Because I didn't even take a look at the standings. I'll get to that in a moment, because I also want to talk about Baker Mayfield, or at least I want to bring up a sounder when he talks about coming back and winning a game. Because again, you have 12 seconds left in the game, and I know Carolina was celebrating. I get it. Listen, you late drive, it was good. You got 12 seconds, and somehow or another, the Bucs were able to pull it off and then go into overtime and be able to win the game there. But if you're a Carolina fan, the same exact way too, you can't get mad at Bryce Young. Yesterday, he ended up with 26 for 46, 298 yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. Chuba Hubbard ended up with 12 carries, 43 yards, no touchdown. Jonathan Brooks, 6 for 18. And then Bryce Young, the other one with the touchdown there, 3 for 17. But you look at the receiving end, Thielen ended up having 99 yards, 8 receptions, 1 touchdown, which is basically the difference maker there. Because then you're talking about the field goal game, as we've seen with many teams this past week. But if you're a Panthers fan, before we get into Baker Mayfield audio, you really cannot be upset with the way this team was earlier during the season compared to the last half. These games that the Panthers have lost have either been by 3 or been really close. They are moving in the right direction. Again, it's the key pieces, just like the Eagles still need some key pieces that are missing on the corners. But you look at Carolina, if you're a Panthers fan, yes, before you guys probably would have been a little bit of a somewhat laughing stock, not as much as other teams like the Jets, for example, that I'm absolutely,
or the Giants.
Yeah, or the Giants, exactly. The Jets especially, because they mentioned Aaron Rodgers. Do you think he's going to be benched? Because I don't know. We'll talk about that when it gets there. Listen, bro, just be done with. You have Jets fans that are. I think it was the one team passed the brown paper bag over to the Jets team. One of the guys at the very end had his bag on and said, "Sell the team." I mean, this team cannot possibly get any worse. It can't get any worse. But you got Aaron Rodgers to continue saying, "No, we're going to be just fine." Blah blah. You can say whatever you want to. You didn't connect with anybody during your bye week. If anything, you should have taken a day off, whatever you needed to rest up. And I would have been my guy saying, "Listen, if we're going to make a run, this is the way we're going to do it." But the Jets are done. We all know this. Anyways, getting back to this here. This is credit to the Buccaneers website. Baker Mayfield on the comeback overtime win.
A fantastic finish in a wild game, Baker. The Bucs get their first win in overtime thanks to execution in so many phases. What does it say about your team you were able to endure?
After just how sloppy we played offensively in that first half, I mean, pretty much for the whole game. Penalties, turnovers by me, not pretty by any means, but to put together a 2-minute drive, to get down there, to put it in field goal range, for Chase to nail one, to put it in overtime, and then just praying to God that defense gets a stop. Obviously, they get the turnover, and then Chase gets redemption. You don't want to give that guy too many tries. He'll nail him.
It was fun to watch. Enjoy this win. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate it.
All right. So there's that. And one thing I do like about what Baker says, Baker always takes it upon himself. He knows when he's done something wrong, at least he's accountable. And you have a few quarterbacks who end up doing so, but he knows when he hasn't had a good game, he knows. And I'm quite sure he'll go back, he'll take a look at it and figure out what he did wrong. Hopefully he won't do the same thing come the following week. Because again, this has now become, with the way Atlanta is kind of collapsing after, kind of a start that no one saw coming with Atlanta. Now they're back to what everybody pretty much thought was just a collapse. Not as bad as the Jets, but Atlanta's going to have to end up regrouping. Penguin AZ, by the way, says, good morning, fellas. I'm late, but hope you all had a good holiday weekend. Packers beating the Lions on Thursday. Hopefully, go Pack, go. Yeah, listen, Penguin AZ, it's going to be a tough match in Detroit, nonetheless, but it's going to be tough. Joey B says, good morning again, Angel. And chat, tuning in late, had to get some work stuff done. No problem, Joey B. Thank you for tuning in, especially when you were over with the Pete Shepard show this morning from 7 to 10 a.m. But no, this right now, and I know I wanted to get into some other stat as well, but it was the one with Baker Mayfield, and there was something else too that led into that overtime that I wanted to get to that I completely kind of slipped from my mind. But nonetheless,
the forced fumble from Nelson is what really got us back into that game, or the end of that game. If he didn't get that forced fumble, I believe the Panthers probably would have scored, and we would have lost a horrible game, and it would have been a completely different feeling. I think Nelson deserves a lot of credit, and that guy has been silently playing a really good game this year, and it's sad that nobody wants to take notice. And he's really helped anchor that defense, and he's a good player. He's a good guy. I like Nelson a lot.
He is good. And I want to bring up here, if we look at, now that I got the full schedule coming up, you have, again, against the Raiders at home, Raymond James Stadium, 1:00. It should be a win. But teams we all know that play under 500 are pissed off and angry because they're not there with everybody else. So the Raiders are looking, if anything, I mean, they made it somewhat of a game out in Kansas City until it wasn't. And obviously Kansas City squeaks out yet another win. Somehow or other they do it. But you get the Raiders at home. That's coming up on the 8th. Then the 15th, the following week, you're traveling to LA to play the Chargers, 425. That is not going to be easy, especially Jim Harbaugh has his team playing. Then you travel to Dallas, a Sunday night game, 8:20, which this is where, and then you have your home against the Panthers in New Orleans. So again, for Tampa Bay, it's not easy. In order to win this division, I mean, these are tough games that are coming up. You can't take anything away from the Raiders. You can't take anything away from Dallas, even though they're both not playing to where they would like to play. But to run that table, GPG, that's going to be extremely hard to do.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's like you said with the Eagles, they get that slow start. The Bucs, until recently, they just, like, it's like the first period they're kind of in a sleep mode, and they're just there, daisy and trying to do this and trying to do that. And if they can just get off to that fast start, because we know they can finish. They've always played all the way up to the end of the game, and they've played tough, but they need to start playing a little faster in the beginning and start sticking to the game plan. And that's what I liked about yesterday. Even though we were down a little bit, Liam Comey still stuck with the run game. Again, Bucky Irvin is phenomenal. And if they can get ahead at the beginning, and kind of like they did with the Giants, and stay ahead and just finish it off and run the ball and run the clock out, I think they'll be able to pull some good wins out and maybe run this table. But they got to get off to a faster start and kind of cut out those penalties, man. Those penalties, they really killed us. We got one call back with a good run. I think that was the Sterling Shepard catch and run, and we got a call back for a holding or a false start, one of those two. But those penalties, man, they really killed us. I think we got like 10 or 11 penalties yesterday, and that's just not how you play football, man. You can't do that, especially when it's a close game like it was. Every little mistake, it's going to be magnified and it's going to be bigger and blown way out of what it needs to be because you can't get up and going like you should be going.
You're right. And there's a lot of teams, including Eagles, the same way too, when it comes down to the penalties. And that's something every team has to work on. So it's just not the Bucs, just not the Eagles, but every team has to do so. But I also noticed too over the weekend is that there was in college and the NFL, some of the calls that were made for pass interference made absolutely no sense. There was one, both almost identical on the college and the NFL side, where it was the slightest bump. There was no tugging, no holding, nothing. It was like the slightest bump and a flag ended up coming out, almost like they just wanted, obviously, the opposing team to end up winning. But hopefully it'll get better. I think the NFL really needs to kind of get together and just create their own NFL officiating school and just go back and look at tapes over and over again. Pay these guys an annual salary. I know they only get paid when they're working the games and obviously if they're able to make it throughout the playoffs. But you need now to get to a point where this needs to be an all year round type situation, just like the front office is. I mean, yes, the athletes, they go home, they take a break, they come back 6 months later. But for the NFL referees, they really need to be making an NFL university for just referees alone. Look back at the mistakes that they have either cost games, some penalties that make absolutely no sense, and other ones that they had completely missed because there was the same way. A couple times yesterday, there was a couple penalties that weren't called. So I think they need to kind of get that mentality a little bit better, but who knows? Maybe they'll figure out at one point or another. It's just enough to drive you bananas. By the way, Joy B says, as an NFL team, is it harder to go from East Coast to West Coast to play or West Coast to East Coast? GBT, I'll let you answer that one, and then I'll give you my thoughts.
Personally, I don't know. I think it's kind of up in the air because you got the whole time change thing and all of that. Maybe the East going to the West just because the timing is later over here than it is over there, and so it's harder to adjust. Me personally, I think it's harder to adjust to being later than earlier, if that makes sense, because over here it's 9 o'clock, and over there I think California is 2 or 3 hours behind us.
Yeah, it's 3 hours behind.
So it's like 5 o'clock over there, and I believe it just messes with the whole body and mentality. They're professionals, so they got to learn to adjust to stuff like that. But I think the East going to the West would be harder.
I think so too. I really, when it comes to me, I think it's hard to go from the East Coast to West Coast because again, your body's used to a certain pattern of doing things, and no different for the folks obviously from the West Coast. Because there have been people that I've known in the past, they've come over to the East Coast and they sleep in later because, again, their body's adjusted to the 3 hour difference. So, you could be up and running around your house at 5 o'clock in the morning, which is obviously 2 a.m., West Coast time, and it's 8 o'clock and here you are still roaming around. The person's like, nah, I'm still sleeping. They wake up around 11 o'clock. I guess you really can't be upset because that's the time they were used to on the West Coast time. Obviously, the sun, depending on what room they're staying in, wouldn't affect them that way. But for me, I think it's East Coast going to the West Coast. It's different. Your body's acclimated. It's it's like they see in social media, the algorithm of your own body. It knows what time it eats, sleeps, blah blah blah. You get to play what is a 4 o'clock game, which is a 1 o'clock game on the. Am I wrong? 4 o'clock game on the East Coast. You're looking at 1 o'clock start on the West Coast. By then, your body's already used to like that time of the day. Like it knows, like either it needs nutrition or the game will be over, whatever the case may be. I just think it's a little bit harder to go from the East Coast over to the West Coast, especially when you have to travel back to back. And I know the Eagles have done a better job. If they play, let's just say that, the Rams and the Niners, Nick Sirianni, I think, is one of the few coaches that will keep the team as long as they're able to do so. And I know Dougie P did it one season as well. If they're able to accommodate them, they will keep them on the West Coast so they don't lose that time travel. Like now, if it's, let's say you're playing the Rams one week, you come home and you play maybe the Dallas the following week, and then you have to travel again to the West Coast. That definitely screws around with you. But I think it's harder, the East Coast over to the West Coast transition. So thanks, Joe B, for the question. He also says the Raiders having to travel to Tampa. That's a tough trip for Las Vegas. Goodness gracious.
It's Monday.
Yeah, it sure is. With the time change. And then he says that the Bucs got to travel to West Coast to play the Chargers a week after. Schedule kind of even things out, but some tough road games for Bucs nonetheless. And it is. Listen, it's not easy. Same way with the Raiders. It's tough, man. It sucks when you're. I guess, dude. I guess the question will end up being: do the Midwest teams then have kind of the advantage because you're? It's kind of best of both worlds. If you look at what Dallas, Denver, who else can we throw in there? Maybe New Orleans.
New Orleans. Well, I think New Orleans is the same time zone as us, though.
New Orleans is an hour behind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, they're a little farther over. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that they maybe have it easier out of the rest of the teams because they're right there. They're not. It's only an hour, so I mean, you just a little bit, but yeah, I agree. I think that the teams that are in the middle have a better advantage when it comes to the traveling.
Yeah, I know it's even baseball. It's the same exact way too. But baseball, they gotten a lot better. I will say Major League Baseball finally woke up because it didn't make any sense to have, and I'll just use the Phillies, for example. Phillies will go play the Dodgers, come back to the East Coast, play Atlanta, then go to San Francisco, go play, San Fran for a 3-game set, then travel to, let's just say, to Texas to play the Astros when, the Astros are, not entered to play, they can do so. Then you travel to, let's say, to Seattle. Now, at least they made it better where they try to keep all the West Coast games within that week or that 2-week span. So you're not doing that crazy jet lag of, here you are, you travel out to California, travel back to the East Coast, travel back to the West Coast. So Major League Baseball has done better. And I've seen the NHL do it as well because I'm trying to think if it was the Lightning this year that had the crazy start where they had to go basically in Canada, played 3 games in Canada from, Central Park to the West Side, over to the West Coast, back here in America, and then eventually end up going back home. So it's tough on the body. No matter which way you look at it, mentally it's tough on the body because it's a time change sequence. You are used to a certain time. When we were at Radio Row, and it was 11 o'clock at night out in Vegas, it's 2 a.m. back on the East Coast. So I can't send a message to somebody because they're not up at the same time. They're sleeping. So it's just bizarre. But nonetheless, hopefully they'll get it. Hopefully it will not add to either wins or losses. It's tough. It is, but we'll end up seeing what happens there. I want to get into, before I go into another quick sponsored break here, because I'm going to roll with this video here. Then I want to bring it back. What I want to do is talk about Matt Eberflus and how in the world this guy made it as far as he did. This is, again, Ryan Clark on Get Up. And this is before, obviously that morning with the loss prior to Matt Eberflus getting fired. And he was at that point wondering if the Bears are going to be going with it. And we all know how that one turned out. So I'm going to bring this up. Let me share this over here. And then GBG, you can listen in as well. But this was Ryan Clark on before Eberflus was being let go.
I mean, I don't use malpractice. I use fireable finish because that's what it is. To me, he has absolutely sealed the deal if you're making decisions and you're the Chicago Bears on whether or not he should continue being the head coach of this team going forward. When you look at the end of that game, I want to think about something that Keenan Allen said. We did enough as players. That's one of your star players, a veteran in this league, a guy who's been a Pro Bowler multiple times, saying, as players, we executed or did what we were told to do. And now you get into that moment and you hear Matt Eberflus say, at first, under 7 seconds. And then he goes, after 12 seconds. Well, Matt, it got under 12 seconds. So even by your own admission and the bull crap that you are spewing post-game, you are wrong because it got down to 9 seconds before you snapped the football. There's no urgency on this team. There's no preparation on this team. No way that they understand what's happening in the moment. You should have drilled this over and over and over again on Fridays in the 2-minute drill. You should have drilled this over and over and over again in the mock game on Saturday. They weren't prepared for this moment, and you could tell it was an organizational failure from Matt Eberflus on down. And to me, if you have an opportunity to take stock in this week, you move forward, even if you don't have someone that's been a head coach on this team.
And it's a great point. Every solid point he had made there, and obviously we knew the outcome when it comes to Eberflus. So we'll get into that. I'll keep GBG here on the line because we're going to take another quick commercial sponsor break, the local breaks here, as P likes to say, and then we'll come back. We'll get into Eberflus and other things as well that went on, and the winners and losers this week, including an update for the Pigskin Pick'em, along with USF almost doesn't give you the W. They almost come back against Rice, fall short, and now it's off to a bowl game. They're going to wait until about Sunday to figure out which one they're going to be. One of the commentators were saying that possibly they will end up in Orlando at the Cure Bowl, but we won't know, at least at the earliest, unless they unveil something maybe this week. I believe all the bowl games will be unveiled, on between December 8th and December 9th. All right, we're going to take a quick break. This will be about a 2-minute break. We'll come right back. Don't forget, you can always call or text the show at 727-858-6650, 727-858-6650, or make your comments here on social medias. I am Angel. You're listening to Martinez Company live on Sports Radio 102.9 FM The Game. We'll be right back.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
What's up, Southwest Florida? Jim and the Beef Guy here. Fort Myers, we answered your call. We're pumped to announce the opening of our second location. It's on 41 just north of the Edison Mall. And guys, nothing's changed here. The beef, the sausage, the breaded steak, our Maxwell Polish. Now serving you in 2 locations, Fort Myers and Bonita Springs. And don't forget, if you're having a party, check out our catering menu.
Hey guys, when you're at the counter, don't call it gardenia. It's pronounced Chardonnay.
Phil Castanetti Sports World in Saugus, Massachusetts is New England's place to buy or sell the finest in sports memorabilia. For over 35 years, Sports World has offered the finest in sports collectibles. Last month, you might remember Tim Thomas, legendary Bruins goalie, returned on October 5th. What a turnout it was. And now a new event coming up. On Saturday, November 30th, it's Willie O'Ree, yes, the original Jackie Robinson of the National Hockey League. He'll be signing autographs to the public, $25 each. There'll be photos, pucks, and cards available. Phone orders are welcome. Just call 781-233-7222 for more information. Sports World in Saugus. Be there. Hey, everybody. It's Pete Shepard from the Coastal Sports Network. Want to tell you about my good friend Lou DiMuzio and his company. Lou is the president and founder of Ace Technology Advisors. They're big-time tech specialists. At ATA, they're able to craft, implement, and manage the best and most appropriate solution for your business. They leverage their industry-leading experience and their portfolio of technology partners to improve your best practices and infrastructure. So you can get a hold of them at 888-599-4223. That's 888-599-4223. Check them out on their webpage, www.acetechadvisors.com. That's www.acetechadvisors.com. Or you can email them sales@acetechadvisors.com. Check out my friend Lou DiMuzio and Ace Technology Advisors.
Ion Tampa Bay is the latest news, weather, and traffic for Pinellas, Pasco, Ellsboro, Hernando, and surrounding communities. Stay connected on X, Facebook, and their website, iontp.com. Ion Tampa Bay keeps you informed on breaking news as it happens. Southwest Florida's newest game in town. Sports Radio 102.9, the game powered by Ion Tampa Bay. We'll be right back.
just follow us on the socials. Call or text the show 727-858-6650 and let us know what's on your mind. Now back to Martinez and Company.
Welcome back. It is Martinez Company here, 11:22 on the East Coast. We thank you all for tuning in to the Coastal Sports Network and Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game. Also, if you guys wouldn't mind, and those who have, I already thank you and appreciate you for it, but you can download the all-new digital sports app at sr1029thegame.com. Directly on the homepage, you guys can just click on it and be able to download the app as well, as GBG has, and Duncan Dan and a couple other folks have been able to do so. So thank you all for those who have downloaded it. And as I mentioned, you can enable the notifications. Like this morning was the first time, I think I've only sent 2 out since I've made the app available. But this morning we had this weird thing that all of a sudden everything went away, didn't come back. So I sent everybody out a notification letting them know that the show was back live. Something just went weird and we ended up coming back. So everybody who has the app were notified that we were back live. So don't forget, you can also visit USF, Tampa Bay Sun FC, the Orlando Predators, all via sr1029thegame.com. As again, we all do appreciate everyone tuning in. Before we enter the break, we're talking about Matt Eberflus. And with that, Joey B had said, OMG, Bears coach Eberflus. Deb in Studio B will never recover as a Bears fan with an Eberflus tenure. Yeah, listen, Joey B, you're probably right. And also with Deb in Studio B, going to swim from Tampa to Key West and back to relive the stress of being a Bears fan. It could be a possibility. It could be a possibility. Rick Marks says the ESPN standings are as close as it could be. Well, I have to take a look at that here in a second. But no, listen, Eberflus, I can't, 14-30. How? As an organization, I just want to know, Bears, how do you allow it? And I get it. He won a Canadian football championship. I get it. It's 2 different leagues. Wait, that's like me and GBG being, I don't know, flag football champions. You know, GBG is a quarterback and me as a head coach or vice versa. It's not the same. We can't join the NFL in the same ranks and be like, well, GBG, somehow or another we were champions for 5 years in a row. What the hell's going on here? So, you know, it wasn't, to me, it was a safe hire. And we've mentioned this before. You can't go with safe hires. You've got to go somewhere like a Dan Campbell that's going to come in and take these teams by the horns and say, here's what we're going to do. We are going to get to this point. I need you all to be all in and believe what's going on. I don't know. To me, Chicago was like, what's that symphony song that the Seahawks came out to twice in the Super Bowl? They finally won it the second time around when they came out to it, but Bittersweet Symphony. That's what, to me, yeah. It's crazy though. To me, it was like it's like the Bears were playing that every time Eberflus showed up because nothing was going to change. You guys, they blamed Justin Fields for the mistakes that happened. Well, he went to Pittsburgh, and obviously no one at Pittsburgh saying the same exact thing, but you allow Eberflus to come back this season. And I know we said that he was on the hot seat, so that's one of what, I think 3 that we had chosen for the season. You know, Todd Bowles, once again, he's again, I think we left him at a 6. I'm going to keep him at a 6 because we're going to see how the rest of the season ends up playing out. But the one thing I'm glad that he's finally stopped saying was we had a good week at practice. Practice was good, blah, blah, blah. He's kind of stopped saying that, but I want to see what's going to end up happening here. But Eberflus was in there one too many seasons. The Bears should have gotten rid of him last season. Now, I don't know who's going to end up being there, Chicago. I can't think of a coach at this point that's going to come in. And also, I don't believe that any NFL team, the other 31 teams, are looking at saying, boy, I can't wait to have Eberflus on my team. No one's saying that. And I don't believe he's going to get a second chance of being a head coach. I don't think he's a good OC. I don't think he's a good DC. I don't think he's a good coordinator. He knows how to lose. If there's a coordinator on losing, he's great on that behalf. But, you know, and I can rank and rag on him the whole 9 yards, but how, as a Bears fan, were you okay with this guy being 14? You are way under 500. You show up as a season ticket holder, and every week oh, we're going to win. And then you don't. So I don't know. I'd love to get your thoughts, GBG, on Eberflus. To me, why did even Chicago allow him to come back if in the end result was going to be the same? We're just going to let him go.
You are asking the question that everybody is asking: why bring a guy back? And I think you touched on it. I think it's a safe bet to have him, and let's just see how it goes. And they were getting rid of Justin Fields, so maybe they thought, oh well, we're getting rid of the problem, so now we should have a better year. And I just think the players are not connecting with him. I don't think they want to play for him. I think they are playing for just themselves and just the team in general, and not playing for the coach, as they say. And I don't think he has command of that locker room. I think that he's lost the locker room. And if he even attempted to connect or try to get him to buy into what he was doing, I guess he didn't do a good job at it, because nobody's buying into it. And they just, I don't know.
That's it. That's just it. It's the bad part. I'm trying to send messages in the process here, but no, that's just it. I don't get it. Listen, I understand you may have seen something in him. So you win 2 in the CFB. It's just not the same. It's not. European football is not going to be the same. I know the NFL is going to obviously, I think we all know where it's going. The NFL definitely wants to be in London. It's like, it's going to be NFL Europe. But anything else that you play, it's not the same caliber. You have the Arena Football 1 League, right? And some of the guys who played the NFL go down to the Arena League. Some of them end up coming back. You can't even as strong as a coach could end up being with them. It's hard to even say that, all right, he could probably end up being a good NFL head coach. I mean, there's so many freaking variables. It's enough to drive you bananas. But I just don't understand how Chicago thought that Eberflus was going to be the answer going forward. I mean, it's just dumb. I don't understand how Bears fans, you guys should have just stayed home. If you wanted to get him fired earlier, stayed home. You hit them in their pockets. It makes them talk. Jaguar fans, it's the same way. If you guys don't like what you have, the product on the field, stay home. Yeah, it's hard as a fan, but you're giving them more money and more reasons to keep the person around. So I don't know. It drives me bananas. Rick says Eberflus sounds like the name of a bad flu. Listen, good point. And Joey B says Colorado Buffaloes fans now calling to decline Alamo Bowl against BYU. Utterly ridiculous, and our fan base is delusional and the epitome of entitlement now. Buff fans think they deserve top 12. Yeah, I would agree, Joey B. That's kind of dumb. Don't put, the cart before the horse. Just relax, Buffalo fans. Be grateful for what you have. Be grateful. There's some teams that might be looking on the outside of a bowl that wish they could have been placed at different places. I mean, you got Miami. Once again, Peter talked about it a little bit. I really saw it, and I was waiting for a 2GPG. I thought he was really going to blow his lid, because how does it happen? I mean, Mario Cristobal, you would have thought would end up playing a much better game, and just Miami looked, and you're a fan of them as well. Third going to the fourth, what happened with the Canes?
I asked myself that same question in the very beginning of the game. I mean, we were there. Well, I say we like I'm on the team or something, but they were up. They were 21-0. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be all right. We're gonna pull this one out. And then it just started going downhill. And I mean, Cam Ward can only do so much. I mean, they got a bunch of superstars on that team, and I think Restrepo is going to end up in the NFL. And they fell apart, man. I think maybe they just thought that they were going to walk through it, or maybe looking ahead to maybe getting a bowl game or something. But I don't think their head was in that game. They looked like they were just going through the motions, and when you do that, you end up losing a game like they did. And it's horrible to see, but at the same time, maybe they needed that wake up call. I mean, Cam's probably going to be gone next year, going to the NFL. So we'll see who Cristobal gets in there. But even at that point, I don't know if Cristobal is the answer to get us to the bowl game or the championship game. And I don't know, maybe they need to start looking in a different direction or going to a different coach or something. But I don't think Cristobal is the answer. He did good. Don't get me wrong. He got a lot of recruits, a lot of transfers in. He's good at that, but at the same time, I don't think he's the coach to get us over the edge. Like same thing with Todd Bowles. He's a good coach. He's a good defensive coach, but I don't think he's the head coach that's going to get us on that next level that we need to start being at with all the players that we have on the team right now. I mean, we have a good team, but it's just something with his coaching is just not clicking. So Cristobal, I like you, and you did really good for the Canes, but maybe it's time to start looking in a different avenue.
Maybe so, because you figure at this point I mean, you went from having a bye week to now, having to not have the bye week at this point, out of the championship game. And if they're playing Notre Dame, and I mentioned this to Pete, and even, Pete didn't really have much to say afterwards when I sent him the text, but look at the way Notre Dame is playing right now. Do you believe, just as a fan of the Canes, do you believe that Miami would be able to beat Notre Dame?
Don't shoot me, Canes fans. I'm a true Canes fan. All right. I like the Canes. I've liked the Canes for a long time. Notre Dame is playing really well right now, and they seem to be more of a complete team, and their offense is really clicking also. So I don't think Miami would be able to beat Notre Dame. I do think Miami could beat some other teams that I'm not going to name because I don't want to get no slack thrown my way or anything. But there are a few teams in the college ranks that I think that Miami could beat, but Notre Dame is not one of them.
Yeah, I don't foresee. I just don't see that somehow or another they would beat Notre Dame. The way Notre Dame is playing right now, Notre Dame could be in a conversation of the championship game. It could be. I mean, obviously it's a long road to get there, but they could be in a conversation to be able to get there. I don't know how many people felt that in the beginning of the year, and maybe some of the college pundits had something to say about it. But to me, it's just it's gonna be a long road for Miami.
Oh yeah, I think that one of the things that really hurts Notre Dame is they're not really in a conference, and I think that tends to backfire on them a lot. And when they're really good, it seems like because they're not in a conference that it's harder for them to get to that final step, that national championship. I mean, unless they're playing really good like they are now, I think that really hurts that they're not in a conference. I think they really look down on that, or snobbish, as Pete would say.
Yeah. No, you're right. By the way, Joey B says, wow, gas pump guy not liking Cristobal at the U. I think he brings swagger back to Coral Gables and gets that fan base committed again. And then follows up with, the U just needs some more time and motorcycle recruits. I think they'll be just fine. Mario took over a program that needed to be rebuilt. Trust the process. Gas pump guy, trust the process.
Hey, look, I said it. I like Mario Cristobal, but if he's been there for 3 years now, and it seems that he is a good coach. Don't get me wrong. He brought the swagger back. He brought all that stuff back, but that's only going to take you so far. You got to have that other notch that you got to go up. And if they keep him for another year, and he did get a lot of good recruits, a lot of 4 stars, a lot of 5 stars. He stole some players away from some really good teams. So maybe next year they do go to that next level. But as of right now, as I see it right now, I don't think that they're there yet. Maybe he needs to get a different defensive coordinator or a different offensive coordinator. I just don't see it happening right now at this moment. If something could change, but I'm always going to be a Canes fan. I love the Canes. they're awesome, but you know, at the same time, you got to look in, not just judge with your heart, but you got to do it with your head as well. And you know, reality is reality. You know, no matter how much you like a team, you got to point out their flaws when they have flaws.
Joey B, by the way, says, Two Life Crew got to start performing at halftime. Canes fans will return, LOL.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Get Uncle Luke up there, buddy.
they definitely would end up coming back. I wanted, there was an, what was the thing that I was, I'm surprised that, what's the name there? And I mean, I know he hasn't officially started until come next year, but I'm surprised that Pitbull has not done like any major performance at his own, you know, AKA university, because I figured after all the hype and everything else, I know it like fizzled out. I guess maybe just folks in Miami and Dade County were excited about it, but there's been no talk about him, you know, with, what was it? Florida, what was his name? The Florida University or whatever it was. What's the,
yeah, I can't remember what it was, but I hear what you're saying. Cause you figure
Florida
Pitbull's
International, I
a
think it
big
was.
draw, man. I mean, you figure they'd start having concerts and all that other kind of stuff. And like you said, it just fizzled out and went into nothing. Like they buried it under the rug. So nobody talks about it anymore.
Right. So I listen again. What the heck do I know? What do I know? All I know is I thought that they would end up doing something major for that school. I think I'm almost certain it's Florida. Either is it Florida Atlantic or Florida International? It's one of the two. No, it's not FAU. I think it's Florida International University, FIU.
Yeah, I think it is. I think, yeah.
Joey B says, by the way, he wants to know our thoughts on the Florida Gators staying with Billy Napier. I applaud them for taking a shot and keeping him. They're going to be a team to contend with moving forward in the SEC. Listen, I thought, Joey B, that maybe they should have gotten rid of him, but somehow or another, magically, he's been able to turn on the Gators, and maybe they see something in him that the rest of us don't. But am I upset? Personally, not really. You know, I'm home of USF, but I think it's a good call by Florida. Florida, obviously, the Gators Nation see something in Billy Napier. They see that he does have the confidence, that he does have the leadership. FIU equals Pitbull. There you go. Thank you, Joey B, for getting us that answer. But to me, I don't have a problem, I guess, with Billy Napier staying there. Now, like everything else, if it turns out to be another Eberflus situation in Chicago, then, you know, Gator Nation, you guys have to look at yourselves. But I don't think, and I could be wrong, I don't believe the students are that upset if they keep him around for another season, but they've seen something, and maybe he finally found something that's the winning formula. And I mean, Pete would probably know this more than I as far as what they need there at Gator Nation, but I'm not mad to put in best terms. I don't know how you feel, GBG, but I'm not mad at keeping them at with the Florida Gator Nation.
No, I mean, I'm not upset about it. I mean, you know, I don't have anything against the Gators or anything. I don't like FSU. I'd rather cheer for, if I had to cheer for anybody besides Miami, I'd rather cheer for the Gators than for FSU. That's a big rival for us. But I think keeping Billy Napier, it couldn't be that bad. I mean, he really did turn that team around, and he's really got them playing really good at the last part of this year. So maybe he finally came into his own and finally got more confidence and built that program up some more with the transfer portal and some recruits and stuff. So, you know, I'm not mad at they kept him. Obviously, like you said, they probably saw something in this latter part of the year that, hey, maybe this guy does have a little glimpse of stardom in him, and maybe we just need to give him another year, or I don't know how long they signed him for, but maybe they just get that on there, and if it works out, it works out, and if not, then, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, I don't know. There's there's tons to go with that. I don't know. I think they'll be just fine. There's going to be other coaches obviously going to be let go. Rice has their interim coach over the Rice Owls. You know, they found a way to what I believe they won their last 3. So Rice found a way to turn around with a new interim head coach, or at least their last 2. I know they won. because I believe they were on a 2-game win streak. So I believe there was their third win. And then you look again, USF, it was finished up 6-6. I mean, they are going to a bowl game for sure. I mean, that we know, but it's not the way. They would have loved to have beaten Rice, but you have people. Great example would being you have people that wanted Alex Golesh gone about 2 weeks ago because of the start that he had versus Navy. And I'll fire him. He's no good. We've had better coaches, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, listen, it's going to take a while for some of these coaches to be able to turn this program around. Don't forget, USF fans, the coach prior to Coach Golesh wasn't a major upgrade. And you guys wanted him gone, and he should have been gone the way USF ended up finishing out. It'll take time to build that program up. You're going to have to look into the transfer portal. You're going to have to make something attractive for guys to be able to come to play in the AAC. I know guys want to play at Big Ten, SEC, ACC. I get it, but you're going to have to find someone really well. I know they're saying that Byron Brown will be back next year. And there's nothing wrong with that. Do I believe the young man has what it takes to be able to take USF into, a much better record come next season? We'll have to see after he comes back from his injury. I like Israel Carter. Don't get me wrong. I think should they have brought him up earlier in the game? But I know Bryce Archie went down with an injury, but obviously he got this team within a touchdown to be able to come back to win the game. And a lot of Rice fans were like, some of the USF fans had left a little bit early when they were playing out there in Texas, but even the Rice fans were like, all right, we got this one in the bag. And then USF almost ended up coming back to win the game. But you're talking about head coach. There's going to be a lot in the college ranks that maybe let go. I mean, you have North Carolina, I believe, the head coach there, it seems like he's been there for 100 years. He finally called it, a career. And so many guys are going to be able to do so. Nick Saban the same way. I don't think Nick Saban comes back. I don't care who offers him what. I don't believe. I could be wrong because he said he wanted to spend more time with his family. So, the college is just tough. College is not easy to coach in. I mean, you only have guys for 2 to 3 seasons. Sometimes if you're lucky, other times it's one and done, depending how well this kid got, recruited as a 5-star, 4-star recruit. And it's the same way with Colorado. Right now, everybody's on this whole thing. Does Deion leave or does he stay? To me, I think he's going to stay in Colorado. Maybe the Gators, if they would have fired Billy Napier, maybe that would have been kind of an attractive destination. I'm not sold that it's going to be a 1-2 combo with him and Shador in Raiders Nation. To me, I think he's going to stay put. My opinion, I think he wants to keep building up that program and do better for Colorado and for himself for that matter. Shador, am I convinced he's a high draft round pick? No, I don't believe so. But again, who am I? I just come out to broadcast. So I don't know. College rankings and college in general, it's so hard to put your finger on it. But I want to get into, as we switch over from USF back over to the NFL for a second, because this was something that was set up on Get Up this morning about 2 hours ago. And they're talking about Lamar Jackson. And do they believe that he has played himself out of the MVP conversation? Because Derrick Henry has been mentioned. Saquon definitely mentioned. At one point, I know Joey Burrow is being mentioned, but not the way that they're playing as of late. So here are the gentlemen from Get Up. When Greeny asked, is it a possibility that maybe, Lamar Jackson has worked himself away from the MVP conversation?
What did we see?
Lamar played poorly, and that's the second time in 3 weeks. Egregious misses. I thought some egregious misses. I thought he didn't see the field clearly and then tried to do too much. We've seen Lamar try to kind of go and make things happen down in the red zone. Justin Tucker missed kicks, but I think he hurt Justin Tucker by some of those sacks. This is an egregious miss. I mean, if he hits likely here, this might be a touchdown, but that's a poor miss. The sprint out to Zay Flowers on third down is wide open. That ball doesn't get tipped. It just looks like it. I thought he forced some throws. And so This is, I think Lamar in the last 3 weeks has played himself out of the lead of the MVP conversation. Again, egregious misses, forced throws. I think he was running around trying to do too much, and he was trying to win the game in one play, and that's what hurt their offense.
What did we see?
Lamar played poorly,
Now,
and that's the
for
second.
those who weren't able to watch the video, apparently the cameraman forgot to tell the other cameraman, by the way, switch a shot to Dan, and they kept moving around the camera. But he makes a great point there. I mean, Lamar Jackson, and I don't know, GBG, this is interesting here. If you're an NFL athlete, period, I wonder if while you're playing, as the season goes, and let's just say you're doing as well as you possibly can be, and you hear your name in the MVP conversations, I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't think Lamar yesterday was thinking about, if I don't play so good, how well am I going to do with the MVP situation come this season? I think Lamar's more worried about as far as, man, I really blew this game. This is directly on me. Oh, and by the way, maybe I took myself out of MVP contention.
Yeah, I don't think any player that's up for MVP or defensive player of the week or whatever, I don't think they go into the game thinking that. I think it's always in the back of their head, but the really good players, I think they just look at the game that's ahead of them and just concentrate on that. If you do start to let that, bother or stay in your head, I do think it can affect you. And maybe it did affect Lamar a little bit, but I don't think that's what he goes into the game thinking all the time. Like the same thing with Mike Evans. I hate to bring it back to the Bucs, but that's what I'm good at. Like with Mike Evans, he's going for another year for 1,000 yards, and it's not looking like he's going to get that. I mean, but I don't think that they go into the game thinking that. I don't think that that's all that's on their mind. I think it's in the back of their head, but at the same time, I think they're more concentrating on the game at hand and worrying about that and winning that game and doing good in that game.
Yeah, I think so. I don't see him or anybody for that matter, just saying, what your status of being an MVP, for the season. I don't think anybody really kind of thinks about it until maybe when it gets to the very end, and maybe you're noticing like, all right, maybe I'm still in that conversation. But I think that was the least of what he was thinking about yesterday. Two more videos I want to get into before I end up closing it out. This other one they talked about on the flip side here is now because of the game that Josh Allen had last night, that now they feel, Rex Ryan at least feels from Get Up, this is courtesy of them, that he feels that now Josh Allen is the best player in the NFL.
The best player in the National Football League. I never said quarterback. He's the best player. And that's it. And look, the guy in the red zone, like I say, he's impossible to defend in the red zone. I think he's the best in the history of the game. Oh, no, he's not. No, he's not. The hell he isn't. I've had to defend them all. Thank goodness I haven't had to defend this cat. Oh, God. I get the jet
Maybe you will next year.
Maybe. But anyway, I mean, this guy really is. I mean, you have to have a bazooka to throw the ball in the red zone. Dano, as you know, those windows get tight in the red zone. Well, guess what? He does it. All right? When he runs the ball, he's an absolute freak, the best ever. And by the way, look at the conditions he plays in.
Yeah.
Nobody can play in those conditions except Josh Allen.
He's a monster.
The best player.
Think about it. Rex said he never said he was the best quarterback. He's talking about he believes that he is the best overall NFL player in the league. Your comments about that one, I just think, I don't think it's a far stretch, but to say he's the best player in the NFL, I don't know. What say you there, Gaspon guy?
I don't know about the best player in the NFL, but I don't like the Buffalo Bills that much, but I do think he's the best quarterback in the NFL right now at this time. Best player in the NFL, not so much. I mean, you got some other players in there that are doing really well. The thing that really gets me is when all this about best players and all of that, you never see them talk about the ones that are silently doing stuff,
Correct.
racking up stats and that, and and they always focus on the big superstar guy, the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, the Jalen Hurts, the Saquon Barkley. I think it's a little one-sided that they always focus on the superstars, but I think they need to just do an overall look at all the stats. I mean, it's kind of difficult to put a defensive lineman against a running back or a wide receiver to say, who's the best. But I just think they need to broaden their horizon a little bit and just stop looking at the main superstars. I mean, granted, they are really good and all that, but at the same time, there's still some really good players that aren't superstars that are making a name for themselves, but the national media doesn't bring attention to them as much, if any of that makes sense to you.
No, it does. No, I understand exactly what you're saying. As Joey B says, Rex Ryan loved his energy and transparency. He's not for everyone. I get it, but he still can coach in the NFL, which it's absolutely true. And the last thing I want to get into here is Greeny talks about, he says the Eagles, as we mentioned now, we're talking about from guys taking themselves out from the MVP race to now the best player in the NFL to now Greeny is stating, he says that the Eagles look like the best team in the NFL. Again, this is courtesy of Get Up. This is about 2 hours ago over on ESPN. And this is, listen, again, I'm trying desperately, GBG. And you know me pretty well now at this point. I am not at all trying to get on this hype wagon, but here is Greeny and his thoughts on why he believes the Eagles are the best team in the NFL.
I'll be the first one to go here because I have to raise my hand and admit it. I waited too long to buy into the Eagles. They are 100% legit. I've been looking at their schedule. I've been looking at their coach. I've been looking at all of the wrong things, and I've been questioning just how good they are. D. Wood, I'm ready to sit here saying, watching the league right this minute, I think they're the best team in the NFL.
The Eagles dominate where you need to dominate, in the trenches, on both sides of the ball. And when we talk about levels, there's levels to this. And the Eagles right now, to me, it's the Detroit Lions and the Philadelphia Eagles, and everyone else falls underneath that. The way that the Eagles played yesterday, I thought defensively they were outstanding on the defensive side of football. Vic Fangio, you've talked about Vic Fangio time and time again. With the way he set this defense up, the way they're playing together on the back end with all those young players and how well they're playing on the back end. I thought they did a great. First of all, I thought they did a really good job balling up the Baltimore Ravens run game. That's one thing you got to handle when you talk about the Baltimore Ravens. But keeping Lamar Jackson keeping him contained in the pocket, because we know that when Lamar Jackson gets outside the pocket, it's next to impossible to really contain him. I thought they did a fantastic job, similar to how the Pittsburgh Steelers did with Lamar Jackson.
So listen. It's been that kind of turnaround for the Eagles, and I know because I'm just fearful of what could end up happening. I hope not. I'm trying to stay on the up and up, and as I mentioned at the very top of the show, I believe the way the Eagles are playing right now is the run that we have seen them make before. I don't want to say it's almost identical to when they played Kansas City when no one expected them to go to the Super Bowl then, but they're playing well enough at this moment to at least for me to feel positive enough that, yes, we definitely have a playoff shot, but I'm not going to go any further from there. Yes, they're playing well on both sides of the ball, but I don't want to say they're making a Super Bowl run because I know I'll be eating mush or porridge or oatmeal or whatever else you want to call it, because it's just one of those things that they're there. They're there. I just hope minimize the injuries, minimize Jalen Hurts trying to make something out of nothing, which would drive me absolutely bananas. Let go of the ball. When nothing is there, don't get injured. Don't try and do too much. No plays, throw it away. That said, don't take the sack because it's just absolutely enough to drive me crazy. Joey, by the way, to finish it up, he says, I was fortunate to watch Josh Allen play in person while he was at Wyoming and against the Mountain West Conference. He was a men amongst boys on the field. He dictated the game. And I know last night they played when he was, I believe, born in the Bay Area of San Francisco. His dad had him as a, he was a fan of the 49ers. The only thing that I don't get, and listen, whatever. I know they have to sell it for TV. GPG, do you remember anything at the age of 5 that you can say right now on the show that, oh yeah, I remember when I was 5, I did this?
I'm gonna be honest with you. I can't remember anything from when I was 21. So, so no, at the age of 5, no, I can't pinpoint any kind of memory or anything. I mean, I can make something up, but other than that, no, I can't say definitively that, oh, I did this when I was 5.
Yeah, it made me laugh yesterday when I heard during the broadcast, like, oh, not Baker, Josh said when he was 5 years old and he, something happened to him that he knew right then and then he wanted to play football. I'm like, listen, I don't remember at the age of 5 of anything whatsoever. I mean, 7, maybe, 12 years old, stuff like that. But as you get older, there's no freaking way, especially, I don't care how good you are. Just like in so many other interviews that kind of crack me up when people say, oh, I knew I wanted to sing when I was like 6 months old. Did you know? Did you? Okay. All right. I got a paperback, column to sell you too, because no one on God's green earth says, oh yeah, I remember before I was born, I knew I wanted to do this. Come on, stop it.
Yeah. I was throwing a football in the womb. I remember.
Yeah. I went for a deep pass. It went nowhere. It just floated there. Come on, man. Just stop it. It's enough to drive you absolute bananas. But nonetheless, it is towards, oh, by the way, Joy B, as he's finally called me out, he says, porridge. Who in the hell calls it porridge any longer? LOL, Angel going old school. Yeah, that's what I do. It's exactly what I do. Yes. Joey B, I do go on my rant every once in a while, but I'm not going to go too much on it because, again, listen, I'm loving what the Eagles are doing. I just hope they remain on the track they're doing right now, the path that they are, because the Commanders they're not going to give up. They know that still, the division is a toss-up, but right now it's kind of hard for the Eagles to, I hope they don't blow it, but it'd be a little difficult to see the Commanders then run the table, as it's called at this time of the season. I just want to see the Eagles remain on course, stay par to the course. I don't need you. I don't need, a double eagle. I don't need an eagle. I don't need the birdie. Stay the course, stay par for the course, and we'll be just fine. GPG, thanks for hanging in there. I do appreciate, of course, your Bucks commentary. Thank you for your commentary altogether. As always, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving weekend, which I'm quite sure that you did with you and your family, your lovely wife, and your kids. So thank you so much for joining me here on the show today.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me. Like I texted you, I'm one of the things I'm thankful for, Angel, is for the opportunity that you give me to come on here and joke around and to, talk about the team that I really like and I really love. And I'm just thankful that you've seen something in me to get me to do this. And I think I've came a long way. I don't know what anybody else thinks, but sometimes whatever you think is what you need to think. So thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome. You are most certainly welcome. And the good thing is between you and Fuji is at least your phone doesn't die out like Fuji's does with his Metro PCS line. That's why he hasn't called back, because he knows his Metro PCS is not landed. But nonetheless, I kid with Fuji. He knows it. Joey B says, take care, fellas. Welcome back. Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. Hope you as well, Joey B, along with everyone else out there. We will be back later this afternoon. The Drive with Q, possibly a 4:30 start. I'll get the confirmation. He'll send it out a little bit later on. So the Drive with Q will start about 4:30-ish, if not just a little bit later. Then after the Drive with Q, he'll be on until 6 p.m. Beeves World on from 6 to 7 p.m. And then to close out the night, it is Lloyd Vance's Insider Football on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game. Don't forget, you guys can always shoot us an email. Just let us know how we're doing here. Go on the homepage, leave your comments. Let us know how the network is doing, or if you have an idea to share with us. We can't thank our sponsors enough, and we thank Tampa Joe's, 9316 Anderson Road out there in beautiful Tampa, Florida, for their sponsorship as well. Don't forget, you guys can go there on game days, non-game days, terrific food, awesome drinks, just an all-around fantastic atmosphere. So we thank Tampa Joe's. Don't forget, tomorrow night, the men play. They're back in play at the England Center, and then the women have an early game on Thursday at 11 o'clock. They'll be on as well. You guys can check out the updates a little bit later on. Don't forget also to visit sr1029thegame.com. And with that being said, we thank you all for tuning in today. You have been listening to Martinez Company on Sports Radio 102.9 FM, The Game. Have yourselves a great rest of your afternoon.
Go Bucks.